Hello everybody, welcome to the Football Daily Weekly Special. That's right, it says special there. This is because we're going to be talking about teenage sensations on the show. Those footballers...
Miley Cyrus.
Those footballers who came along at a young age in their teenage in their teenage years and made an enormous impact very, very early on. Lynsey, who would you like to throw out there straight away, who made a huge impact on the world of football just at the age?
I'm going to start with Ryan Giggs because I actually saw one of his very first games.
Wow.
Do you know who I support? Do you remember?
Yes.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes,
but
I don't want you. Yeah.
I'm a Wolverhampton Wanderers fan.
You support Wolves, don't you?
Yeah, well remembered, Laurence.
Yeah.
And there was a friendly. Manchester United came to Molineux, and I was 8 years old, and it was my very first time that I went with an uncle of mine. And I remember to this day, after the game, saying how impressed I was with this player, Ryan Giggs.
Really?
One of his...
An 8-year-old? As an 8-year-old, you were like,
that's
some impressive wing play, is what she said. You went there.
Well, I probably was impressed by quite a few things.
Yeah.
It was quite easy on the eye.
Not his tracking back.
Yeah. I love the idea that's what she said to her uncle going on there.
But I really was impressed, and I remember him being standout on that day, and walking out of Molineux, all of the Wolves fans were saying, well, we couldn't do anything with him. He's star quality. He went on to have a fantastic debut season. He scored in the Premier League very early on in his career. One of the 4 players that Sir Alex Ferguson says he's managed that was truly world class. You can debate those 4 players, but certainly he was one of them. I wouldn't debate that. Impressive because he just never ever gave up on anything, and he never had any fear, did he, in his game?
Certainly didn't have any fear, no.
So he was the sort of player that really excited me and got me into football. Probably, I mean, at that point, my granddad and my uncle were obsessed with it, and that's probably where it came from for me. Is seeing those sorts of players. I love Gary Speed as well. Those were 2 of my favourite players at the time. But
that's a great start with Ryan Giggs. What about yourself, Laurence?
Memories of Michael Owen. I went to the baseball ground. That's
where
long
County
ago. Yeah,
used to play.
Yeah, that's how long ago this is.
Such a weird name for a football ground. Though.
Yeah, named by. Yeah, it was named for
Jimmy
a reason.
Baseball.
Yeah,
Go on.
yeah.
So Michael Owen.
Yeah, and so Liverpool youth team. We went to see the Liverpool under-18s versus the Derby under-18s. That's how good Derby were at the time. And I think Liverpool the weird thing is I can't remember. I think they lost 4-0. But I remember just being incredibly excited by the fact that Michael Owen was so fast. Like, he was so quick. And he was only I think he was about, how much older? How old is Michael Owen?
Well, he's probably
now 36, 37?
Yeah,
I think he's about 10 years older than me. So I was really excited to see this 16-year-old sort of bursting through and having a threat. And, he got close, and I just remember being like, that was amazing.
Yeah.
And, the way that he burst onto the scene for Liverpool. And he was do you remember he had a TV show?
Yes.
Where he was weirdly in a kid's poster in his bedroom.
I don't remember that.
Do you not remember that? Well, for me,
Michael Owen's Skill School.
Well, those were 2 separate shows.
Michael Owen's Skill and then Michael Owen's School.
Yeah. So Michael Owen had I think it was basically there was a narrative-based show, but then also one where he just bored kids to death.
But he had an awful lot around him, and then of course
speaking out loud for a while.
Literally, he was just going. The key to it is really. Sorry, I think I've drifted off.
But the fact is, he had his own show. He then played for England, scored the World Cup, and he did.
Do you remember the Argentina goal?
No, I don't.
That is the goal you remember for him.
Yeah. If you're an England fan.
Yeah.
And then he also scored those 2 goals in the FA Cup final against Arsenal, and that was sensational.
Was he a teenager then, though?
No, but he burst through and sort of. And what you also think is, for all the time that Liverpool spent on Robbie Fowler, McManaman, and all those guys, this was another young guy coming through the academy and impressing incredibly.
Yeah. What about Wayne Rooney?
Yes.
I mean, when he burst onto the scene with Everton and scored that goal against Arsenal.
Remember the name, Wayne Rooney.
It was sensational stuff. And then he started scoring goals and, of course, went to Manchester United. Was it I think it was his debut for Manchester United.
In the Champions League, three goals.
Roy the Rovers.
Yeah.
Another player that people have said, has he peaked too early, or will he peak too early? Who doesn't show any signs of slowing down is Lionel Messi.
Right.
Or Lionel Messi. Yeah. Or Cristiano Ronaldo, you could say. I mean, Ronaldo...
He is slowing down a little bit, but yeah.
I disagree with that.
I think he's had to learn. I mean, he said it himself in recent interviews, sort of saying,
in sheer pace terms.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean in pace? I was going to say because he's just about to.
I don't mean in terms of record. I mean in terms of physically.
I wouldn't say. Well, I would perhaps disagree with that. But when he came on the scene as a teenager, actually there was an awful lot of hype around him. Yeah. But he has got better. Yeah. Whereas Michael Owen and maybe Wayne Rooney as well, you could say that they certainly went up and then maybe down. Whereas Ronaldo and Messi have got better as they've gone.
But they've also been in the right environment for that. So you'd imagine if I mean that was the interesting thing, I suppose. That's the weird thing for maybe a club like Manchester United. If Ronaldo had stayed, imagine what would have happened.
The players around him is an important point. I mean, you've got to have the right players in order to play the game that you want. And how many seasons have we seen Rooney play the role that he doesn't necessarily perform the best in? Probably too many. So I think you afford him a bit for that.
What about Iker Casillas?
Yeah,
he was 18 when he first came
Sergio Ramos.
If you're going to talk Iker Casillas, then David De Gea is the same, isn't it?
True, but Iker Casillas won the Champions League when he was a teenager. Yeah. You know, and has been one of the great servants for Real Madrid. Yeah. Sadly, it didn't end too well. One from yesteryear, and a painfully obvious one as well. Pele.
Yeah, that was painfully obvious, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can't really argue against that.
He won a lot.
17 years old, winning the World Cup.
Having such an impact winning the World Cup as well.
Yeah, and also you'd imagine that it'll be interesting. I would love to know what it's like for a young guy to play in that time, a different kind of football almost, isn't it? And you know, like you think what he would have come up against would have been a much more physical game. Yeah. Coming up against some of the sides that he came up against would have been such a challenge for a 17-year-old physically.
Very, very different game back then, much more physical, but they would have known less about him.
Yeah, so he's much more surprising. Yeah, which is quite exciting, I suppose. Imagine seeing that. Like, you've never seen him on TV before. You don't really know what you're coming up against. There's going to be someone who's like, by the way, number 10's good. Really? Look at that. That is incredible. Yeah. And you're literally seeing someone just tear your defence apart. That's fantastic. That doesn't happen so much now because people on Twitter ruin it. They go, he'll be good in this game.
Well, not necessarily on Twitter. I mean,
I'm kidding.
But the mass media, we all know about various players. We've seen various clips of them because of the internet and so on and so forth. But Pele is probably, for many people, the ultimate example of a teenage star.
Yeah, and I don't think it matters whether they'd have had post-match analysis or not. You could do all the video footage you want about Pele, but do you stop him? Probably not.
Yeah, exactly.
I imagine watching this Super 8 footage before the match and just going, that dot does look good. Yes, you're right. Great tactics.
Marvellous stuff. All these players obviously burst onto the scene very early on in their lives, and everybody loves a first time tale, which is why we think you'd be interested in a new YouTube channel in collaboration with Nationwide Building Society called Money Stuff, boasting some of the UK's best YouTube talent, sharing hilarious stories about their first times in life. All this was created to help raise awareness for the current account available for 11 to 17-year-olds called Flex One. Check it out by clicking here. We have to pick a winner. I'm going to go for Ryan Giggs.
You're kidding me.
Yeah.
I was going to go for Ryan Giggs, but actually Pele's in the mix. I'm going for Pele.
Well, the reason why I say Ryan Giggs is because it was obviously personal to perhaps a few people watching, but certainly yourself, Lynsey, and we've watched that man's career through the whole. He stayed at one club. And he didn't really drop off. Yes, he lost a bit of pace, but he then changed position.
It's also what he represents, isn't it?
Yes.
It's sort of the hard work of that class of '92. And you think of the other names that go along with that, which is Beckham, Neville. But
also as well, Giggs at the start of his career, he was actually a year before them.
Yeah.
And that really kick-started the whole Premiership and now Premier League that we know. Yeah. And he was kind of like that new generation of footballing
They
talent.
threw out the rule book, didn't they?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed they did.
10 years' time, it'll be Anthony Martial.
Indeed, it could well be. Thank you very much, Lawrence.
Thank you, Lynsey.
This is what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Lynsey Hooper from the Offside Rule podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure.
We get it.
Enjoy the football.